Muluka, as well as Professor Macharia Munene are my guests this evening. And right before the break, we were unpacking the apparent, sibling rivalry that is actually being witnessed within the East African community. And to be precise, in these three particular countries, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, the biggest question then would be, what really is the root cause of this kind of animosity? Because it doesn't have to be, country and country fighting, but basically we get to see with these kinds of, occurrences like what happened to, the Honorable Martha Karua this morning and many other leaders that have traversed the different parts of East Africa to face the animosity. So Dr. Barak, briefly before we go back to Prof, what really is happening? Is it what Professor says that Wakenya wako juu sana na hawataki kushuka?
That was in the older days when none other than Mwalimu Julius Nyerere himself referred to Kenya as a man-eat-man society. It was the age of the ideological divide between the world of capital and the world of communism. And Tanzania steadily gravitated towards socialism and eventually embraced it, while Kenya under Jomo Kenyatta, of course, was capitalist. Never mind that both countries purported to be non-aligned and positively neutral. And arising out of that, Kenya tended to develop a lot faster, maybe because of the openness to foreign investment, Western multinationals. And Nyerere used to tell Tanzanians that if you want to go to London, there's no need to go to London, just go to Nairobi here. You will see the infrastructure, and you'll also hear them speaking English and all that. Wazungu weusi wako hapo upande ule wa mpaka. There was that. And then of course Uganda worked herself into collapse under Idi Amin and a succession of chaotic leadership, while Kenya was stable at that time. There was that rivalry. Some Kenyan leaders, of course, retorted to Nyerere, telling him, yes, we are a man-eat-man society, and Tanzania is a man-eat-nothing society. There were those nasty exchanges. The difference between that time and now is twofold. Number one is that in those days, the animosity was open, it was stated, there was no pretext. Today, we have something that we have a charter, we have a treaty, we have got even the African Union Charter that provides for free movement of goods and peoples. Tanzania is even the headquarters of the East African community. And so there's that hostility that is residual, which I think has been carried from the old days. But at another level, you find the three East African founding states of the community cooperating at the political level, where it is necessary to abduct leaders, to abduct other people. Ugandans have been abducted in Kenya and taken back to their country. Tanzanians, the same. So there's that level of conspiracy and cooperation within the ruling political classes within the three countries.
All right.
So finally, I think Martha Karua should have been allowed to get into Tanzania. She should have been given the opportunity to do what she wanted to do. If she was going to break the law, she should even have been given the opportunity to break the law, and then she should have been arrested like anybody else who breaks the law. But you don't arrest a citizen of East Africa who legitimately tries to come in through a legitimate port, carrying legitimate papers, and say you have arrested them and you are returning them to their country for unstated breaches.
Have they, without appearing as though I am pointing a finger at the two brothers, that is Uganda and Tanzania, it looks like there's just some, bad feeling, if not bad blood, about a majority of other African countries that is towards Kenya. Why is it so? I almost want to feel like, has the East African community also painted Kenya as that big, bad big brother, such that this is slowly and slowly creeping to the minds of other, brothers in the continent? And I mean, we witness times like what we witnessed during the African Union Commission chairmanship, where the Right Honorable Raila Odinga could not clinch this seat, and some people argued it's because there's something that does not sit right with the rest of the people or the rest of the countries in the continent in regards to Kenya.
Well, on the issue of Raila and the AU, I think that was Kenya's doing. It had nothing to do with the other people.
Okay.
It was blunders on our part.
All right.
But the difference, the way they look at Kenya, can be stretched all the way back to the colonial experience. You see, Tanganyika, as it used to be called, had multiple colonial experiences. The German colonial structure, and then the League of Nations and the United Nations, officially as a mandate territory and trust territory, under the British on behalf of both bodies.
Okay.
Uganda was supposedly a protectorate with the Kabaka and a few kings, and they're allowed to do a few small things as long as they keep on obeying what they're told. But this place, which they called Kenya, was a colony for the settlement of white people.
Okay.
And to enjoy it. They used to say this place was paradise on earth. Now, during those periods, there were instances of friction. Because, if I may divert a little bit to a bit of history, after the Harizuku whatever, there were questions how did it happen then. And the meeting in London, somebody came up and said, remind these Indians and these Europeans that their place is not theirs.
Okay.
That's the Devonshire white people. And so the settlers came up with a bright idea. Some people are calling what? Closer union in the 1920s.
1923.
Yeah, the
Starting there.
Devonshire was in 23. But thereafter, disillusioned settlers came up with a closer union to bring the other two, because they're all under Britain now.
Okay.
So can we have one administration follow? And you can see that's why the State House in Nairobi is bigger than all the other state houses.
Okay.
Because the assumption was that the Governor General
Should sit
would be based in Nairobi.
Okay.
That was the assumption. The problem was the governor of Tanganyika was not amused, was not interested. And the Ugandans, particularly the Bagadas, did not want anything to do with this. Because to agree to that closer union is to be put under settler domination.
Okay.
They said no way. So that idea flopped. What then followed is what Dr. has mentioned, the common services in the 1940s, which worked very well. And that's when those who can remember, there used to be currency, 10 cents with a hole in between.
Okay.
And it was very good. These things were abolished with independence.
Okay.
Because of what? Jealousies, frictions, competitions. Kenya was the first of the three to come up with a document on what it stood for. That's the session of paper number 10,
Right.
65, which said Kenya was a socialist country with no socialism of any kind. And there was nothing African about it.
Okay.
But it was very clear. Nyerere was second with his Ujamaa 2 years later, making it very clear that what they stand for is very different from what
Kenya stands for.
Kenya stands for.
Okay.
2 years after that, Obote came up with his own halfway.
The common man's charter.
The common man's charter. Obote had a habit of copying.
Okay. And still could not copy to the last.
You could not do it properly. Yeah?
Okay.
And as a result, a lot of Kenyans were harassed in Uganda for being capitalistic. Yeah?
Okay.
So you have these problems exactly. Kenya is the enemy.
Okay.
Even when you are talking about federation. And when that is the case, it doesn't matter where you go.
Okay.
The feeling is that if you allow the Kenyans, they will acquire everything.
Okay.
So stop them. And Tanzania itself has a problem within itself. Zanzibar and the mainland are at loggerheads most of the time.
Yes.
And I don't know whether Barak you've experienced. I once tried to travel from Dar es Salaam to Zanzibar. And they created problems. Hii jina sila hapa hili. So we start talking about jumia, wacha. Hii jina si hapa. Lipa zaidi.
Allah.
So you say, well, what's going on? And when I asked the Tanzania High Commissioner, and what's going on, I said, najua ndugu zetu wa Zanzibar bwana. That ends there. So the internal problems always also do affect the regional
dynamics. But then the question would be, is maybe as we sum it up on this matter, and perhaps Dr. Knowing that these problems have been in existence, and we all know that they deter us from the common goal, from the main goal. What then do we do to chart the way forward? And even as you respond to this, perhaps do not overlook the element of politics, the level of intolerance, the activism that comes along with that, and this opposition politics that we do not expect for the presidents as well to overlook. How do we tame this so that then there is no that unnecessary fear that when Martha Karua is coming in, he's coming in to support Tundu Lissu, who is my competitor, so perhaps there is no genuineness in the political discourse that plays out at this point?
I think the two things which we must do intentionally. One is to grow democracy intentionally. The people who, for the time being, are privileged to occupy State House in Entebbe, in Dar es Salaam, and in Nairobi, they should know that they hold those offices as trustees for the nations, and that if the citizens of East Africa want freedom of integration, freedom of expression, they want that democratic dispensation, they should be allowed, and it should be nurtured progressively. Within the East African Community Treaty, there is even anticipation of a federation, and we are not going to be federated if we are behaving the way we are today. Professor Macharia Munene almost nostalgically reminds us of the earlier years when we had made very great steps forward. We even had a common central bank. We did not just have a common currency. We had a common central bank for the three East African states of Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And if you worked for East African Railways and Harbors Corporation, you could be transferred from Kisumu to Gulu, or from Gulu to Jinja. It was a community that was moving towards being one nation. And the people who have been a hindrance to this are the people in leadership, basically out of pursuing narrow, selfish agendas. That is one thing. The other thing which we must do, and especially ourselves here in Kenya, being in leadership, is to develop a conscious international relations policy. We don't seem to have any conscious attention to that. Professor is more steeped in international relations than I am. He's the teacher. He probably will elucidate on this a little more. It does not appear like we have a foreign relations policy in this country, never mind the pretexts. Right now, we are hearing that the United Nations headquarters in Nairobi is likely to be uprooted, to be taken to Kigali, and they are working very hard towards it in Rwanda. If you see the posts that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs puts in Instagram, they're about the Minister for Foreign Affairs motorcade arriving in some foreign city in South America, how he's being received, that kind of very ornate exhibitionism, where there are greater questions today. If I hear about the Foreign Affairs Office, I want to hear what they're doing about Gigiri. Is it true that UNEP and Habitat are going to be moving to Kigali? What is the Kenya government doing about it? So we are not intentional. And if we were intentional, we would lead in a policy that we then persuade our brothers and sisters within the broader context of the East African community to consider embracing and moving a lot more seriously together as one nation. Okay,
let me slide my second question as to politics of intolerance and what we see with a lot of activism across, cross-border activism, I would say, into the next beat or the next part of the conversation. Could we pick this bite by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua that then leads us to that conversation?
The mood in the country, if that IBC tries to mess with the election, there will be no country here. 207 will look like a Christmas party. The mood in the country, if that IBC tries to mess with the election, there will be no country here. 207 will look like a Christmas party.
Just how honest, coming from the truthful man, is that statement, or how reckless would you consider it to be? Because then I would want for you to tell me whether, and I don't know whether this would pass as, grammatically correct. I mean, are we becoming a verbally reckless nation? And we'll cite a couple of utterances that have been made by the leaders that perhaps would suggest that what my lecturer would once call verbal diarrhea, for lack of a better phrase. Come to you, Prof.
One of the challenges facing our leadership or leaders is knowing what to say when and how.
And Riggy has since said that he did not mean that. I do not know.
What came out is that if you mess up with